You've probably heard the term data pipeline thrown around, right? Especially with all the buzz about AI and big data. It sounds super technical, maybe even a little intimidating. But it's a concept that's quietly shaping pretty much everything in our digital world. So what exactly is a data pipeline? Let's break it down. To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to start with a question that data engineers, the people who actually build these things, often ask each other. This popped up in a popular online forum where they were trying to figure out the best way to explain their jobs to, friends and family. It's such a simple question, but the answers tell you everything you need to know. The number one most common answer people gave? Just one word: plumbing. And, on the surface, that totally makes sense. A pipeline moves something, in this case, data, from point A to point B. It feels intuitive. But that's also where the problems with the analogy begin. Yeah, so while plumbing is a handy starting point, that analogy breaks down almost immediately. The word pipeline is actually kind of misleading because what's happening to the data inside is way, way more complicated than just moving it around. Okay, think about it like this. A water pipe just transports water. The water that goes in is the exact same water that comes out. Simple. But a data pipeline, it's fundamentally different. The data that goes in is almost never the same as the data that comes out. It isn't just moved. It's transformed, it's cleaned, it's reshaped. It's a whole process of change, not just transport. And the bros in that online discussion, they totally agree. This quote right here just nails their frustration. The whole plumbing metaphor, it just doesn't do justice to the complexity of the work. So if it's not plumbing, then what is it? Well, data professionals overwhelmingly prefer a different analogy, one that captures that missing piece of the puzzle: transformation. And the best way to think about a data pipeline is as a factory assembly line. This comment just says it all, doesn't it? A factory takes in raw materials, and through a whole series of steps, it assembles them into a finished, valuable product. A data pipeline does the exact same thing. It takes in raw, messy, disconnected data and turns it into something refined, reliable, and actually useful. And, this whole factory process has a formal name in the industry: ETL. It stands for extract, transform, and load. This is a huge concept in data engineering. It's basically the blueprint for the assembly line we've been talking about. So let's connect the dots here. First, you extract the data. That's like the raw materials arriving at the factory's loading dock. Next, you transform it. This is the assembly line itself, where all the data gets sorted, cleaned up, and combined. And finally, you load the finished, valuable data into a destination, like a data warehouse where it's all shiny and ready to be used. All right, so we've got our factory. But how do you organize all the work that's happening inside? Well, there's a really popular and effective framework for this called the medallion architecture. And it's all about making sure the data gets better and better at every single step. This architecture breaks down the whole transformation process into 3 distinct layers of quality: bronze, silver, and gold. The goal is to progressively refine the data, making it more valuable and more trustworthy as it moves through the system. This creates what they call a single source of truth that an entire company can rely on. So how does it work? Well, the bronze layer is where all the raw data lands, exactly as it comes from the source, unfiltered, unchanged. It's messy, but it's a perfect historical record. Then, in the silver layer, the data gets cleaned, filtered, and standardized. You're removing duplicates, fixing typos, making sure all the dates are in the same format. And finally, the gold layer. This is where you find the pristine, aggregated data that's ready for high-value use cases, like a big report showing total sales per region or the curated data set you need to train an AI model. Okay, so now we get the what and the how. But what about the why? Why do we even bother building these complex digital factories in the first place? Why does any of this matter? The truth is, data pipelines are the invisible infrastructure powering our digital world. Seriously, every time your streaming service recommends a new show, that's a pipeline at work. When an e-commerce site shows you products you might actually like, that's a pipeline. And those incredible generative AI models making headlines today, they are trained on massive, perfectly prepared data sets, all made possible by data pipelines. And the scale we're dealing with here is just astronomical. By 2027, it's predicted we'll be creating 200 zettabytes of data every single year. A zettabyte is a trillion gigabytes. It's a number that's hard to even wrap your head around. Without these powerful, automated data factories, trying to find anything useful in that ocean of information would be completely impossible. So, how do we know if a data pipeline is actually any good? Well, like any other critical piece of infrastructure, it's measured against some incredibly high standards.
I mean, just look at these numbers. Professionals are targeting things like 99.9% uptime, which means the system is almost never ever down. They measure latency, the delay from when data is created to when it's ready to use, in minutes. And they're aiming for error rates below 0.1%. These aren't just suggestions, they are hard requirements. For the businesses that rely on them, these pipelines need to be as reliable as the power grid.
So we've seen how data pipelines are these amazing factories designed to take raw, messy data and turn it into something clean, structured, and valuable. But that leaves us with one last, fascinating question to think about. In this relentless quest for perfection, as we filter and clean and polish our data from bronze to gold, what important, messy, real-world context might we be leaving behind? What truths might only exist in the very noise we're trying so carefully to eliminate?